So, this is another random Wednesday video, and today we're talking about Doom on the 3DO. Everyone here knows Doom, the game that's been ported to literally everything. Pregnancy tests, refrigerators, smart toasters. If it has a CPU, someone has shoved Doom onto it. But one of the most legendary bad ports is the 3DO version. Quick thing before we get into the disaster that is 3DO Doom. If you like videos like this and want to support the channel, the best way to do that is to go wishlist my indie game, Myths and Monsters, on Steam. I don't have a Patreon, and I don't do memberships, but I do make games. So if you want to help out, a wish list on the game goes a long way. And if you want to try the game out, there's a demo available on itch. And if you like retro gaming content and want to talk to some people who like retro games as well, I also have a Discord server. Links to the game as well as the Discord will be in the description. Now, last Wednesday I did a video covering the Saturn version, as well as the patch that improved it. Now, I'm gonna point out right now that base Saturn Doom is way worse than base 3DO Doom. And I'll explain why I think that later. But 3DO Doom is pretty bad. And to understand why it's bad, we need to talk about the development story. In early 1995, a company called Art Data Interactive acquired the console rights to Doom for the 3DO. Their CEO, Randy Scott, is a man we need to keep in mind throughout this video. Because if I had the capacity to give an award for the stupidest video game designer / executive of all time, this guy would be number one on my list to give it to. Like, this man is platinum trophy level stupidity. He raised a ton of money and promised investors a groundbreaking port, exclusive weapons, new levels, live action FMV cutscenes. Basically Doom, but better than Doom, if you can believe it. There was just one tiny problem. This man was an idiot! And months went by, and nobody wrote a single line of code. And as the deadline got dangerously close, Art Data reached out to Logicware, run by veteran programmer Rebecca Heineman. Randy Scott told her the game was 90% complete. Spoiler, it was 0% complete. He essentially just gave her a floppy disk with PC Doom and told her, yeah, port this. This idiot seemed to think that you could just put PC Doom onto a disk and it would run on the 3DO. This man was an idiot. I cannot stress this enough. Oh, he also seemed to think that you could take JPEGs of weapons and just plop them straight into the game. Yeah, not very smart. So, Becky had 10 weeks to make the port with no engine, no portal, no tools, just nothing. Realizing a full PC port was impossible on the 3DO, she contacted id Software and got the source code for the Atari Jaguar version, the stripped down version of Doom. And under insane pressure, she rebuilt the entire game and got it running on the 3DO in 10 weeks. 10 weeks! That's not development time, that's a college cram session. The result is a port that exists. Yeah, the port didn't turn out great. Like, at all. It flopped for two big reasons. One, the 3DO was already a dead console. Nobody owned it because it was expensive, and while there were a handful of good games on it, they didn't exactly justify the price. And two, this port just sucks. I mean, look at this. The frame rate is abysmal. The screen is not full screen. The enemies move around like they're in molasses. And the game chugs harder than a frat boy on dollar beer night. And the funny part? You can make the screen bigger using a cheat code. But if you do that, the frame rate drops even harder, and it becomes a slideshow. And I think it's hilarious that you have to use a cheat code to get full screen. Because full screen is advertised on the box of the game. And the main reason it's a cheat is because another model of the 3DO, called the Mark II, was supposedly going to be released soon. And it was going to be much stronger and would have supposedly made Doom be able to run at full screen at a competent frame rate. But that console never came to be. So the cheat code is basically enabling a feature for a console that doesn't exist. However, this is the wild part. If you shrink the screen to the smallest possible size, the game actually runs surprisingly well. Can you see anything? Not really. But does it run? Shockingly, yes. It's like Doom, but you're playing it through a keyhole. Now, earlier I said I still think the Saturn version is worse. And here's the reason why. The soundtrack. I'm not a fan of PlayStation or Saturn Doom soundtrack. It leans way too hard into the horror ambience. And Doom is not a horror game. Doom is a rip and tear demons into shreds game. I want metal riffs, not haunted air conditioner noises. But Doom 3DO? Shockingly, it has a really good soundtrack. And the story of how that soundtrack got made is absolutely hilarious. I'll let this clip speak for itself.
Development, so now I'm only 8 weeks away from we gotta ship this thing. I then realized, the Jaguar version doesn't have any sound or music. And that was by design because the Jaguar had to fit on a cartridge, and one of the design decisions was to remove music and sound. Or at least there was a couple of sounds in there, just like some gunshots, but that's it. So I'm like, well, I'm not going to write a music driver for the 3DO that plays the PC music. And then that's when the CEO of Art Data, when he was once again on the phone begging me to put in these cutscenes, mentioned that he has a band. Light bulb. Kill two birds with one stone. Make him think he's helping out this game, which he was actually, so I will give him that. And B, get him off my back.
This will never not be funny. The reason this legendary soundtrack exists is because Becky wanted to get this guy off her back. That's just great. And this soundtrack is legitimately really good. Here, take a listen to it. Seriously, maybe Randy Scott should have been a musician rather than a game developer. I'm just saying. And if you want to hear the story of the development of 3DO Doom in more detail, I highly recommend checking out the video I will link in the description, where Rebecca here basically explains the whole tale. She does a better job of explaining this than I ever will, since she actually lived it firsthand. So yeah, 3DO Doom sucks. But if you saw the title of the video, you know that's not where things end. Enter OptiDoom, the fan fix. A programmer who goes by Optimus6128, also known as Bugo, the cat, decided to take matters into his own hands. Why? Because Rebecca, in a surprisingly awesome move, released the full 3DO Doom source code on GitHub. Anyone could work on it, and this coder jumped in and started building a version that actually functions. So, does it work? In its base mode? Yeah, kinda. In the original 3DO version, I could barely aim my gun because the frame rate was so bad. Fighting enemies felt like trying to aim during a PowerPoint presentation. In OptiDoom, the base mode definitely runs better. Not amazing, but better. I can actually turn. I can actually shoot things consistently. And I can actually play the game without feeling like I'm drifting through time. But that's just a start, because OptiDoom includes a ton of presets that will change how the game looks and runs. And some of these greatly improve the frame rate. You can make it look like it was on the Amiga, the Super Nintendo, the 32X, and yes, the Atari 2600. And the Atari 2600 preset is easily the funniest one. It looks exactly like you'd expect Doom on the Atari 2600 to look. Would you actually want to play Doom on the Atari 2600? Probably not. But as a novelty, yeah, it's hilarious. I mean, just look at this. It's so bad, but it's so funny. And the best part, a lot of these presets actually boost the frame rate and make the game more playable. And there are a ton of settings and cheats in OptiDoom. Like, we'd be here all day if I tried to list them all. But the highlights include changing the rendering and screen size, swapping in PlayStation Doom sound effects, toggling performance hacks, visual filters, and a debug mode. And you can add fire skyboxes to later levels, as well as liquid effects to the lava. There are more presets here than any sane person needs. It's basically a Doom playground built on top of a broken port. Overall, I played this Doom patch for a while, and honestly, I found it pretty fun. It's not perfect, and it's not mind-blowing, but it's fun. And considering where 3DO Doom started, that alone is a miracle. Even if you're just remotely curious about weird retro ports, fan patches, or just want to see someone breathe life into a game that was basically dead on arrival, I highly recommend giving OptiDoom a try. I'll leave a link to the patch in the description, along with the interview Rebecca Heineman gave, because if you're interested in game design, or just want to hear one of the wildest video game development stories ever told, it is absolutely worth watching. Anyway, that's all for this random Wednesday video. Hopefully, I'll see you guys next week for my review of Dragon Quest II. Make sure to like and subscribe and do the notification bell or whatever if you don't want to miss that. This is Troy Schultz, the Anti-Gamer Slayer, signing off!